All right, so here we are on day 1 of Unit 3, and this is functions review. So if this sounds familiar, chances are you learned it in algebra. And so we're just going to review it before we make it a little bit more algebra 2y. So in the domain, you need to remember is your input value. Okay, so domain is your input. It's what you put into a function or an equation. Okay, it's the set of x values. So domain, input, x values, all of those mean the same thing. Okay, range would be your output value, also known as your set of y values. And the way I remember this is that domain and range, domain alphabetically becomes first, input, output, I comes first in the alphabet, okay? X, Y, also alphabetical, all right? So remember domain, input, X values, range, output, Y values. Okay. Function, every input or X value has exactly one output or Y value. An easy way of remembering that is that no X value repeats. Okay. If you have an X value that repeats, it's not a function. Okay. So for instance, if you have a point on a graph called 3, 1, and you have a point on a graph called 3, 2, this would be not a function. So the way I think of it is that a function, almost like a function machine or like a vending machine, okay? If you put 3 in, you have to get the same output out. You put 5 in, you get the same. So you can't put 3 in and get something different out each time you put the same number 3 in. That can't happen. Well, it can happen, but it can't happen in a function, okay? So each x value can only go with one y value, okay? An x value of 3 can either go with 1 or it can go with 2. It can't go with both if it's a function. Kind of like a date to a prom, right? You take a date to a prom, you only take one. You can't take both of them. Well, maybe you can, but try not to. All right, so how to determine if table sets or ordered pair mappings represent a function. Again, no domain values or input values or x values can repeat, okay? You can only assign an input or an x value to one and only one output if it wants to be a function, okay? It's a lot easier to see on a graph. You learned something called the vertical line test. That's a great way of checking whether x values repeat or not. Okay? If a vertical line crosses the graph more than once, it is not a function. Okay? So when you go down with a vertical line, if you hit the graph once and only once in all spots, then it is a function. If you have a vertical line and it hits a graph twice or more, automatically not a function. Okay, so here's some graphs to show you how this works. In example 1 here, it says determine if the graphs are functions. And so in the very first one, it's very easy to see that when I go down with a vertical line, not only do I hit this point here, which is actually coordinates of 1, 3, but then I also hit this point down here, which has coordinates of 1, 0. Well, 1 can only go with 3, or it can go with 0 in a function. It can't go with both 3 and 1, okay? And so this one is not a function. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. Let's see, if I go down with a vertical line, I only hit the graph once, only hit the graph once, only hit the graph once, only hit the graph once. And I think you guys can see that this is going to go ahead and pass the vertical line test. And so this is going to be a function. Okay. In the third graph, again, if I go down with some vertical lines, testing to see if any x value will repeat. I think you guys can see this one is going to also pass, and so this one is a function. Okay. And let's check the last one here. Take some vertical lines and we go down, and we're going to have to be very careful with this line right here. Hits there and it hits there. Those are closed circles, which means that that point really is there. And so this is -1, comma 2. And this one, where it hit again on that same vertical line, is -1, -3. And right there, you got an x value that repeats. It cannot go with 2 and -3. It can only go with one of those numbers if this wants to be a function, and it doesn't. And so we're going to go ahead and say not a function. And that's how the vertical line test works. Okay. All right, so in exercise number 2, we don't have graphs, but we have some tables and some mapping diagrams and a set of coordinates, and we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. It's just that we can't use the vertical line test in this one. So how a mapping diagram works is that it goes from one number. These first bubble is your x's, and the second bubble is your y's. And so this one here goes from 1 to looks like 1, and so that makes the point 1, comma 1. Then the next one goes from 5 to 6, and so that makes the point 5, comma 6. And then this one goes from 7 to 2, and that makes the point 7, comma 2. And if you notice, all your x values are different, and so this would be an example of a function. Okay, next one up. This one looks like it goes from 3 to 2. And then this line looks like it goes from 3 to 8. And right there, that 3 can't go with 2 and 8 in a function. It can only go with one of them. And so this is not a function. We don't even have to look at the other points. Okay, if we look here in this table, we have -2, comma 1, -1, comma 0, 0, 1, 1, 2. If you look at all those x values, none of them repeat. Each x value only goes with one y value. Even though there's two y values, that's okay in order to be a function. So this one would be a function. Okay. In the next picture, another table. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 2, 4, 3, 8, 4, 16, and 2, 4. And right there is a repeating x value. However, do you notice that these are the same y values? So would this be okay? And it would be. And so this is actually a function. So they tried to trick you. They put the same point in there twice. Okay, you have one x value of 2, and it goes with 4 and 4, and that's the same, and so that's why it can be a function. Okay, last one. We got 0, 7, -2, 5, 4, 3, -2, 9. Okay, that's not okay in order to be a function. -2 can either go with 5 or it can go with 9. It can't go with both of them, and so this one is not a function. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And we're going to go ahead and I'll see you on the back side of notes in the next video.